Welcome, everybody. This is going to be a fantastic night. There's one special guest who I promised that this will be the most positive evening of the entire year. And I think we can deliver. I'm going to make my... I usually tell people to make the intros very short and not quote the author because the author is here. I'm just going to break those rules just for a minute. There's a bonus feature in the L'Allegro DVD where Mark Morris says, I consider myself a musician, and I choreograph because of music, specifically to music, and music is my number one absolute priority in my life. Bringing live music, choreographing to a wealth of wonderful music from Handel to Lou Harrison to Bob Wills to Bach, conducting, doing musicals, opera. It's only natural, I think, that he chose a musician to help him with his memoir. And I've got to tell Mark and Wesley that the tone and the voice of the book are just fantastic. It's a hilarious book. I urge you to read passages to friends and loved ones. It's an all-around entertainment. Mark Morris has established two wonderful and strong organizations. One is the Mark Morris Dance Group, and you saw the results, and they've been doing this for over 30 years. The second is the Mark Morris Dance Center in Brooklyn. It's a school. Anyone can go there and take classes. It's on most of the subway lines in New York. Just walk down Flatbush Avenue and take a right from Grand Army Plaza, go past the Barclays Center. I urge you to go there and take part and be part of his community. They've also established a very important program for people with Parkinson's. That's Movement for Parkinson's, also Voices for Parkinson's. I hope you've read the book. Read it again. There is something, as you saw in Pepperland, something very powerful in taking folk forms of just simply holding hands and turning in a circle or jumping or stamping, and it becomes a very powerful thing when you see it. And it's a universal thing. And Mark Morris has been dancing and creating these, taking material from all over the world and creating dances and creating organizations. I wrote a little blurb for our holiday newsletter, and then I ended with, Mark Morris has led a wonderful and a very creative life. Very hardworking, inspired, and inspiring. So without further ado, please help me welcome Mark Morris and Wesley Stace.
Hello. It's a remote thing. Hello, because it's on. Yes, okay, fine. Oh my God. I thought there were like 11 people here. Hello, Wes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can everybody else hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay.
Don't tell me how to hold a mic, sir. Thank you. Go.
First question.
Yes.
So, Mark came to me a few years ago. We were friends, and he said, let's write this book together. I would never consider that situation for any other human in the world because I know Mark to be a man, and I knew Mark already to be a man full of great stories, that he just probably needed a hand of somebody getting down onto the page. and I can tell stories, and that's how this came about. He wouldn't have wanted, I think, somebody in the dance world with an agenda. And in that, I was uniquely qualified, since I don't really know anything about modern dance whatsoever. So let me ask you this question, Mr. Morris.
Yes.
It's not a question I've ever asked you before, and that narrows it down because I've asked you so many. Mm-hmm. When you think of a memoir, be it a memoir about dance or not, what do you think when you were thinking of, I, Mark Morris, could write a memoir, obviously with the help of a genius? What did you think would be, what was an inspirational book to someone like you? Perhaps one outside dance or perhaps one inside dance?
As a memoir, you mean?
Yeah, that's what you were doing. That's what you were writing.
I thought it was your idea to have a book.
It was originally my idea, but you came round to it.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's good. I loved Andre Agassi's memoir.
You mentioned that a few times.
Did we read that? It's so good. Oh, yay.
Why is it so good?
I don't know. I think because it's everything you think about how horrible a life in tennis must probably be and how it ruins everything. It's like, I loved it. I thought it was so beautiful and like really tender and sad and awful. You know, like what you want like what everybody wants in a book. And I don't know. I've not read more memoirs than I've read memoirs.
How about a dance book then that would have... Are there any dance books? I mean, I know you love the Fred and Ginger book with the flip pages.
Any book of Arlene Croce is a genius book of criticism or analysis or anything. Is this loud enough? Can you hear me? It's such a nice plosive guard that it sounds like we're just talking, kind of.
It's scratchy on the face, isn't it?
Yeah. No, but I don't know. It never occurred to me to model this book on anything else. Sure. Because, it's like there was some review, I don't want to mention reviews, but there was some review in the New York Times that said something like, it's not what one expects in a memoir. It's like, well, hooray. That's what I thought. I mean, it was actually memory that composed this book and us.
Do you think that the Andre Agassi book, because you mentioned that one, which might seem a left field mention, do you think that you relate to him as a athlete? Do you think your dancing and his body's requirements of him as an athlete was one of the reasons you like that book? Or him? No,
not directly. I mean, certainly there are similarities in you do something over and over and over every day, whether you want to or not. It's like getting into the pool. If you're a swimmer, which I'm not, you get in the pool and it's cold every morning. It's a horror show and you do it and that's how you become a really good one. And that's the same thing with the tennis thing or within a certain way in the dance training, the regimen, the sort of rote memorization of things and obedience and difficulty, just like patterning and that sort of thing, which is like, oh my God, will this never end? The answer is it never ends. And so if you don't like that part of it, don't do it. So in that way, like it's not just the word, not just discipline or obedience, it's also a passion and it's also a habit and it's also no choice. It's like a conviction that you never even had to make. It's a devotion and a dedication. I'm not a nun, but it's really that, like if you don't want to do it, you can't do it. It just won't work.
And if we can, without any spoilers, you gave up dancing at one point. You stopped dancing at one point.
Yes.
And was that partly because you just didn't want that regimen anymore in your life?
I didn't want to do it anymore. It was like, the story is, and it's true. Maybe it's in the book. I don't even know, but probably. I haven't read the book, by the way.
No. I've hardly read it.
I was there.
Yeah,
but it had something to do with...
Often.
Yeah, right. It had to do with warming up for 5 minutes to perform for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Gradually turns into warming up for 2 hours to perform for 5 minutes. And at that point, it's just like, oh, what the fuck is that about? Like, enough already.
Funnily enough, one of my first exposures to your art was at BAM, and you were doing a dance that is quite pivotal in it's weird when your back's entirely to me.
I'm opening up to the crowd, you see.
Okay, good.
I'm listening. I can hear you.
So it's strangely weird. No, it's
fine.
Was one of your final dances, I think. That was the dance for Lou Harrison's music. I think it was called Serenade. And that was the first time I saw you ever dance, had any exposure to your work at all. My wife forced me to go to BAM to see that. And there was the wonderful Bob Wills music.
Right.
It was
right.
a great night. And that was a very solo dance, Serenade, that's mentioned in the book quite a lot. And I believe that the Politics and Prose were playing some Lou Harrison music.
That's right.
So talk about Lou Harrison and your love of his music.
Well, first of all, that dance was, I believe that was the last dance that I choreographed for myself to perform, because I stopped performing, because duh. At a certain point, it's like, come on, enough already. So I was counting on my diminishing skills as a dancer coincided with my audience's diminishing vision or something like that. It's like, and hearing. It's like, no, I can't count on that. And Lou Harrison, who died during the choreography of that dance, the commission of that dance. Can you say that? While I was working on this dance, my very dear friend Lou Harrison, wonderful composer. If you don't know him, shame on you. If you do know him, you're in heaven just thinking about him. He wrote. I'm just going to say this because he wrote a piece of music for guitar and percussion, and I wanted to do a dance that was made of metal and wood, like a guitar and cymbals and whatever. And so I incorporated props and little sets. It was a solo dance with these two musicians, and I did a dance with a copper pipe as a tribute to Remy Charlotte, who was a wonderful dancer and choreographer. And I used a fan, and the music was sort of from all over the world, elements of music of the world, including Turkish and Indonesian and Spanish music. And he wrote a piece sort of in the style of Scarlatti, the Italian composer who lived in Spain and who defined Spanish Baroque music. And I thought that this dance, is this all right then saying this? I think it is. Okay. This it seemed to me that I should just for some reason play the castanets. A, I play the castanets really well. And B, the music seemed like it needed that. And because there are finger cymbals and drums and beautiful little bits of percussion. So I was going to call him. Right. Didn't you always want to call that person, then you didn't, and then he died? It's like, oh, shit, I missed it, which is, of course, selfish because he's the one who died. But I was about to call him to say, do you mind if I play castanets during this number? And I imagined his answer was, of course, you're going to do it anyway. And he died before I got the response. So I I magically transformed that into a tribute to Lou because I loved him. We were very good friends. And I thought, let's just do that. But the kooky thing is, your first witnessing of my dancing was also like the end of my dancing.
Yeah.
So you didn't see me as an adorable, 17-year-old or anything like that. Just as adorable, whatever that was, your age here.
It was adorable. I mean, it was.
It's a good dance. I don't do it anymore. Other people do it.
While we're going with the flow of your relationship with living composers, right? I would say now, because the last book written about you, not the last book written about you, but the other major book was Joan Acacella's book, which is a wonderful book, which ran out in what year?
1993.
Yeah, so there was a lot to catch up on. So who she wouldn't have mentioned at all is Ethan Iverson, who is another living composer that you have a very ongoing relationship with. And those people who came to see Pepperland see, as you realise when you're seeing Pepperland, you're seeing five or six Beatles songs and 5 or 6 pieces of what would you call it? Linking music or their own music by Ethan.
I would say interstitial.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful word.
It's a great word.
Yeah, it is. Some interstitial music by Ethan Iverson from the Bad Plus X, who is the composer and also the piano player. How does I know you put Pepperland together with him. That's fair to say, right? Yeah. And there were a lot of pragmatic decisions that went into that. But how does your relationship, I suppose the linking question is, how does your relationship with Lou, who I think composed his last piece of music, commissioned piece of music was for you, perhaps, with Ethan, who is, another composer with whom you have as close a relationship, perhaps closer, since he plays with you as well.
Well, Ethan, for a number of years, a while ago, was my music director. So he was in charge of all matters musical. For your information, in case you don't know this, I only work with living musicians. I don't work with non-living musicians. So every show that we do, every class in my studio, every rehearsal has people striking or bowing things. Or singing. So it's actually as alive as the dancing is, which is a very unusual, unfortunately, occurrence. So Ethan, as a wonderful jazz musician, that's his principal job. I took him on as my music director to perform the work of all different composers and to run rehearsals, etc. He'd never really touched, except through exercises and studying, Baroque music, and I use a great deal of Baroque music. So Ethan had a very fast course in Baroque theory and music and performance. And he's a fabulous guy, a fabulous musician, principally, as I said, in the jazz department. So he arranged this music originally from the Beatles for this particular show. And he's always been a great sort of conscience of mine musically. He's opened me to an enormous range of music that I wouldn't listen to. I have a low tolerance for certain periods of jazz. Very early I love, and kind of now I love. I'm missing a few decades in between, but we're working on that. And he, like Lou Harrison, adapted music. They have written music for me. Lou sent me I asked him to write music. He sent me music and said, if there's anything you want to say about it, any adjustments, just let me know, expecting that I wouldn't, because, of course, he's the composer. And I said, after some work, this is a little too unfinished. Like, there's something wrong with this. I don't know what it is. I feel like it needs a little bit more to it. Please reapproach this, which I couldn't believe I was doing that. And I sent him the music without any sort of talk. He sent me back the music a couple weeks later, and it was fulfilled. It was complete, but it was also shorter. I thought it was going to have to be longer to answer its own problems. And it turned into, of course, the key was pinch a couple things off here and it'll work. So I don't know exactly how their music brains work. I know that because they kind of trust me and we've worked together, that worked out. Also, Ethan's alive, so he can still solve these problems and Lou can't.
Right. It feels...
What was that answer? I don't even know what I said. Okay. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Thank you. Yeah.
We're in the middle of a
bookstore.
Exactly. It's fine. Well, I wonder, though, for example, is it fair to say that the Beatles' 4 syllables movie...
It's done. Yeah.
Is it fair to say that the Beatles' music, with its being in either 4 or 3 every now and then, might not have necessarily satisfied you for dance as much as Ethan Iverson's complexification of that music, where he puts it into 4 and 6 and 5 in the same piece of When I'm 64. In other words, dancing to the Beatles When I'm 64 seems to me that it wouldn't lead to as interesting a place for you in your head or inspiration for a dance as Ethan's version of it, where he's making it do so many things with time signatures.
I wouldn't have dreamed of doing a dance just to the recording.
Right.
I mean, if you want to do that, as we all know, you just get a little bit drunk and put on the record and cry and sing along. We've done that, but that's not a show. That's like a private ceremony of grief.
But for some people, that kind of is a show.
It is a show. You know, every baritone in the room sounds great in the shower. but I don't want to go there. You know what I mean? I don't want to visit it on site. Thank you.
I'll open some windows.
Open every window and the skylight. It's a little warm in here.
I can't, it's because there's so many people here.
I know, because there's a... Oh, that's busted a little bit. Oh, it's okay. That's a nice fan. No, it's okay.
Let's not analyze the fan too much.
Why not? It's an insight into how my creative mind works.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So
okay.
tell us about the fan. What's wrong with the fan?
What was I answering? I
Well,
forgot.
let me take it into another.
Oh, the
direction.
Beatles. No, wait a second
yeah.
on the Beatles. The thing is, as I said, I only use living music. And when I was asked by the festival in Liverpool for the 50th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper, etc., I was asked by someone I know if I would consider doing a show to that music. And I said, well, let me just check. It's been 30 years since I listened to it, because it's not what I listen to every day. And I was a Beatles fan at the time I needed to be, and then I wasn't because I got bored of it. And I don't listen to that much popular music. So I thought about it, talked to Ethan, and said, well, sure, let's do that. But of course, it will be live music. Of course, it will be a treatment of these pieces, not a parody in that sense, but arrangements and this interstitial music that I mentioned to flesh out an evening of about an hour of dancing and music. And that's how that happened. But otherwise, if it had just been put on the rack, drop the needle, and dance, that's more of a social dance than it would be like a concert dance. Right. So I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out or what would be the most interesting route, and it just kind of turned out well.
It's a beautiful dance and an incredibly touching dance and a very complete hour of entertainment. I think those of us who've seen it will see. When you say you only work with live musicians, it is probably why, for example, someone like me, who is a musician, likes your dance so much, is that, and why we're friends perhaps, is that it is so musically inspired. I know you have made up dances to silence, as so many choreographers did in the 70s.
Right.
I know you have experimented with various musics, and I know you have done dances to recorded music, like the Violent Femmes thing and other things like that. But essentially, the fact about your music is you need that, and for a long time you were considered, I think it's a phrase you use in the book, the go-to Baroque person. But of course, what you're also incredibly well known for is your love of the music of the world. And India and, so much world music. How do you think that the relation to that music being played live in the room, I completely understand. Mm-hmm. But why do you think dance, in the other people who do dance, became slightly divorced from the idea of live music in a room, which must be the original idea of what dance was intended for, because it can't have been done any other way since there weren't recording techniques. So I don't want a history lesson, but I wonder what your idea is of why. Was it all postmodernism that took it in that weird direction where music was kind of nothing to do with dance, where it became its own thing?
Even worse.
Long question, I'm sorry.
Even worse. I know you don't want a history lesson, but in 1685,
Great.
when it was
Cromwell.
Right, that was Bach and Handel,
right.
And Scarlatti, I think. Anyhow, that's the history lesson. I think I don't know. One problem is that dance is the sad little runt of the litter of the arts. Oh, everybody's like, that was like the puppy calendar I was going to buy you. Yeah, it's like, oh, little dance. Nobody cares.
But it's true, isn't it?
It is so true.
It's true.
It's
Look
so
at the league
terrible.
table of the arts.
Oh, my God. No, music is gigantic. Dance is minute. And I, from music, come to dance. So,
That's the truth of it.
That is the truth of it. But it's also like, it's like, oh, sorry. I don't want to go to... Wait, I just apologized to a microphone. I'm so sorry.
It's tall like a human.
M-I-C, it's spelled M-I-C for some reason, I don't know why. It used to be, for example, that every opera that was written was meant to be, because of the name opera, it was meant to be the whole damn thing. Or the Gesamtkunstwerk that Wagner loved to say all the time. But that's what it was. It was lyric theater. It was singing, declamation, pageantry, poetry, dancing. It was all of that. And hooray. It wasn't for everybody necessarily, but it became that way. Then when the tunes and the dances and the stories of the highfalutin society who produced these things filtered into popular culture. So, that was an amazing thing. And this is like hundreds of years ago. Sadly, it never came back. So I'm not blaming it on Judson Church and the divorce of music from dance.
Explain what Judson Church is.
Okay. It's a church in Manhattan, and it was in the 60s and 70s, a very important, super intellectual, conceptual hotbed of denial, of let's do this with nothing. Let's make this art from absolute nothing. I'm not talking about arte povera or anything, but I'm talking about the people who just threw all that shit away. Yvonne Rainer comes to mind, of course, saying no to this, no to that. That was also 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
That's over. So it was embarrassing for people to choreograph to music.
Yeah.
Or if there was music, it had nothing to do with what people were doing. And Merce Cunningham was a wonderful, great choreographer and friend of mine. And we worked with music in very different ways. He specifically and mostly with John Cage. But it wasn't anti-musical. It was anti the dependence of one upon the other. And so what I do is also not completely dependent, one mode dancing on against another, which is music. They're the same thing. And we're saying the same sentences through dance and through music simultaneously, as opposed to, fuck you, I'm a musician. Wait, I'm sorry. As a musician. Oh, you breathe. I know, but you're a musician also. I didn't want to say that directly to you. But it's super old fashioned. And it's also, to me, dance, rhythm, walking, working, singing, chanting, dancing, labor are all related. So, I'm a very, very big devotee of classical Indian music and dance. And it's out of the question that any dance from India in the classical tradition, which is where I work, would be offbeat or out of tune or not relating to the text in some way. So if I'm using words, my work relates to the text. It always relates to the rhythm. It relates to the other fundamentals of music and tone and harmony and rhythm and all of that stuff. So for me, that's it's not like a rediscovery. It's a sort of a reparation to how music and dance have been divorced. And I just don't like that so much. That's all.
It feels to me that, in fact, by the time you came to dance and to be a choreographer, that you were, in fact, unworried by a lot of the controversies that had been before you in terms of the Judson Church. You felt you didn't need to add to that argument at all,
Right.
that your place in dance was to just show the bodies moving to the music that you really loved, that you thought you could illuminate and appreciate by people moving to it.
Yeah.
How's that?
Did you change your pronunciation at the last second
I
from
got worried about
controversy?
I can never remember whether it's controversy
know.
because Prince says one thing.
I know.
And
yeah.
I say another in England and you say another in America. And there's certain words where I get halfway through them and I'm just I'll go for a halfway thing.
That's why I never pronounce elegiac in public, because I don't know how to say it. Is that how you say it?
Elegiac?
Yeah. Or elegiac.
No, you don't say elegiac.
There's
You might
no
say
A there, though.
elegiac.
No, there's no A. Yeah, they do because they're wrong. But people also say February, okay? I'm sorry.
And nuclear.
Oh, my God, don't start me on that.
I know.
Where were we?
Well, that's a question
That
only
was
you
good.
can answer.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what the answer is.
The point was, though, I was just saying that thing about how you, I think, were unworried by the things that other people felt embroiled by. There are those arguments in the ongoing story of an art form that some people can never get beyond, and they feel they have to write their new thing and solve the problem as well on whatever level. Whereas I think you came in with a very blank slate idea where you said, people haven't used this music for and it didn't occur to you that they hadn't. You were unworried by the previous dilemmas that held people up.
I agree with you. Yes, but also maybe this is important that my earliest dancing years were dancing with people and singing. With music, with dancing, singing in choirs, folk dancing, holding hands with people, singing in, pidgin Serbian while I'm dancing. It's like, I can order in a Serbian restaurant, but I can't, I'm not fluent. I could sing a couple songs and dance. And that was the folk dancing thing. And my years studying flamenco and jota and all sorts of Spanish dance, it's just something I love. And since I go to India every couple years. I go to Indonesia with some frequency. I love that shit. So, and music and dancing, where they're part of the same culture.
And exactly, yes, and that's the point, isn't it? Not to make it all obvious, but the point about the folk dancing is there'd be no folk dancing without the folk music.
Or without the folk.
Or without the folk.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, really. And that's always, I also have a big sort of bullshit monitor when I go to a show. I can tell if it's going well. Are you in love for the moment that you're doing this? Or, are you telling the truth? And it doesn't, it's not a documentary. It's just the realness of the artifice of the theater. It's like, I'm singing about this, I'm dancing about this. You have to believe it because it has to be true. And it's tricky because it's already phony baloney because you're doing it in front of people over and over every night. It's like, well, how do you find what that is? And that's a folk dance thing, folk ways kind of thing.
And the thing that you say at least once in the book, but it would have been in there many more times if I hadn't cut it out, was
Thank you.
Dancing, dancing... What is it? Dancing for you.
Yeah, instead of at you.
Yeah. You don't want to be dancing.
It's like, okay, all right.
And that's the folk dance thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's with, and everyone is. A lot of people have said this, which is peace. A lot of people have said this, like, your shows, my shows, look like you could just get up and join them, run down the aisle and get on stage and dance with them. It's like, no.
Stay.
Security. But I love that.
But that's the folk dance element.
But it's also the people element, the people that I work with, who I hire, who are people. It's like, oh, your company looks like people. It's like, well, guess who peoples the 64 swans in the Mariinsky and Swan Lake? They're people. They're identical in the same outfit, but they're still people. Come on,
and
like
also
Soylent Green.
But that's the thing that got. But that's the thing that got you into dancing was the need and the urge to insert yourself into that line of dancers with the belts or whatever that is in whatever Macedonia
right.
What is that?
Yeah.
Or whatever the folk dance
Yes.
you were getting involved in, and the idea in the book, which if anybody's
you better read it. I hope you're buying it. Come on,
Boy,
that's what we're here for.
To help you do that. And the idea of that dance was you can insert yourself when you're ready to be a part of that. But if you aren't ready, you're going to be out of that line really quick.
Yeah.
It's moving quick, and they're not going to be happy with you messing them up.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think a lot of what the audience is saying is a tribute to that element of that remains in your dance.
Absolutely.
It's that idea that you could join in. You feel like you could. Okay, completely changing tack because what we're going to do in a little while is open this up for questions. No, not
now, just
yet.
a minute, sir.
People can come to the two respective mics.
Mic A and Mic B.
Or shout, and I can repeat.
Are you recording it?
Yep.
Yeah.
You are, okay.
Maybe so.
Yeah, all right.
They better be good questions. It's going on microphone. So let's completely changing tack. So of course I know so many because of the way this happened, of the stories. But when you think back to your career,
yes.
I just want you to think of a time that I know it's a battle. I know it's hard work. I know there are problems at every step, and once upon a time it was getting any money, and now it's getting some money, and all those things.
Oh, and now it's way too much money. It's All right, it's like, no, I'm not going to bother anymore. Kidding.
I know, because of how much you paid me.
That's right.
But think back to a time, or think now to a time of a dance that you really feel answers all the problems that you wanted it to, like a real favourite of yours amongst the beautiful oeuvre that you've created, that we've all seen so many dances of. When you were to think of the top of the bunch, and of course that will change, and you might want to see it. But all that aside, what do you think is the finest one, and the one you're happiest with?
I liked what you said before, which was that solves all the problems.
That's right.
That I liked better.
That's my real question.
The easy popular answer is L'Allegro, Il Penseroso ed il Moderato, gigantic piece from 30 years ago to Handel. I love that it solved all the problems of the time. Yeah. Times have also changed. I would say another dance that some people might know, which is called Mosaic and United. Everybody, I love it. Oh,
he hates it.
Congratulations! Oh no, somebody just had a baby back there. Hooray! Little Marklet. Yeah, okay. Sorry, Wesley. Anyway, called Mosaic and United. I choreographed for my company and the White Oak Dance Project simultaneously, two string quartets that nobody knows unless they know this dance. Henry Cowell, who I worship. And it was just a puzzle of a dance. And I was dealing with people I didn't know as well as some of the other people. And it was really this weird kind of, if the United Nations worked as well as it might, it was kind of that. It was this weird dance that for some reason, people really like it. And the music is difficult for some. The dance is bizarre. I don't get it. One of the first dances, the costumes designed by Isaac Mizrahi, my darling, darling friend. But it's a piece that we bring back periodically, and I don't know. It's beautiful and strange and sort of esoteric in a weird way that it actually includes everybody, instead of being super private, which means I'm lying. That and L'Allegro. And also, of course, the tired answer is I'm most interested in the dance I'm working on right now. And it's also true.
And of course, the meaning of your dances must have moved to you, he says, opening a different line of inquiry, when you were dancing the role of Dido, and when you were watching another person, be it a man or a woman, dancing the role of Dido.
Right.
Just address the people in front of you about that experience, that changing experience in your life, unless you have to cry.
I can do both. Dido and Aeneas, I made up the first year that I was in Brussels in 89, 90, something like that. And you're familiar with Dido and Aeneas. Otherwise, sorry. The Purcell Opera, I staged it as a danced opera, and I played Dido and the Sorceress with other people in it. And I thought it was going to be my last dance. I thought I was going to die. I didn't, apparently. And the story is so fabulous and so about everybody and so love, death. And I danced it thinking that it would be my last dance, and also it was a really, really good part that I choreographed for myself, and I did it all over the place, and it was very good. And then we dropped it for a while because I stopped dancing it, and I didn't think that other people could do it as well, and I was wrong. So I brought it back as one person did Dido and another person did the Sorceress, and then it's like, what the hell am I doing? Just do that. But in the course of that, I learned to conduct the score. So now, when we perform it, I'm the one that the dancers say, like, that was way too fast. What do you expect from me? It's like, oh, here, let me make it way too slow to teach you a lesson or whatever. So now it's a weird sort of contained product that we still do, but I feel like my touch on it has lightened. Although I'm conducting it and I can control it, it's a whole different point of view from, enacting the story and being those characters. So now I'm producing a performance from other people, and I'm facing the wrong direction.
That's true, and it means we can see your bald spot.
That's exactly, thank you, correct. Is there like a mirror, one of those bus mirrors back there? Okay. Hooray.
Well, that was very interesting.
Well,
even
I know,
to
because
me.
it's... What?
The whole
Oh,
thing.
great. Okay, good.
Well, I have to keep asking you different questions that you can imagine. I mean, we wrote this book over, I don't know.
A couple of years.
3M, and more than a couple.
Is it?
3 or 4 years in his kitchen and my office and the dance studio and into tape recorders.
All over.
And I'll tell you one story. When I was writing the book, a friend of mine who is quite a well-known ghostwriter of people's memoirs in England, he's written Terry Gilliam's book and John McEnroe's book, and he's very high in that world. He gave me 3 pieces of advice. I can not always remember them, but one was, don't do it. You must transcribe it yourself because you get the rhythm of the human voice. I was like, that's good, yes. 2, shouldn't pay an old person to do that. I should do it myself. 2, you mustn't use a digital recorder because, it could go, you could lose it all, and then you'd have to go back and ask all the same questions. That would be a disaster. You must have a safety of that. And I can't remember what the third one was. Point being, when he was doing his next book, I got an email from him that I said, how's the book going? He said, it's fantastic. I just sent the digital tapes to the woman who's transcribing it for me. I was like, that's exactly what you didn't tell me to do. He said, times have changed. You should move with me. Okay, we have another 20 minutes, and we would like to take questions, and we are going to do so now. So that guy put up his hand so quick before it was even legal. You say it, and I'll repeat it.
I have a question.
Okay.
Are we moving the mic or moving the people?
We're moving the people.
Because not everybody moves as well as everybody
Well,
else.
shout the question.
They can shout it out. Okay.
There's so many people here. People listening to this now. This is incredibly full. It's very difficult to get people near the microphones.
Are you thinking about making an opera out of the book? And if you do so, will you fictionalize it at all to make it more juicy?
It's a ludicrous question.
That's a great question.
The question is...
Have you read it? Oh, yeah.
The question is, are you, Mark Morris, thinking of making an opera, or perhaps me, I don't know, thinking of making an opera out of the book, and would you make the juicy bits, would you exaggerate them, were that to be the case?
Well, I would stretch it out to like a 4-evening event.
Yes.
Like the Ringsicle. And and there would be no choreography, and it would be all super dry recitativo, so that it would just torture everybody, and you're cured from opera by that. That's what I think. I haven't given it a great deal of thought, but that's pretty good.
And also, can I say that the reason that you haven't given it a great deal of thought is because there is no music already in place for it. And unless there is a piece of music in place for something, there is no reason really for you to think of choreographing anything at all.
No, that's not true, because we would go from the libretto, and a composer would be engaged to write that.
Who are we going to ask?
I don't know. You? No.
Not me.
Okay.
There's a man by a mic.
I'm interested in the demographics of the audience at the Kennedy Center, as well as this audience. There are only a handful of people here who are not on Medicare.
You sure?
What is it? Where are young people being in the audience and being engaged and involved in dance?
Anybody hear that?
Fine.
Okay.
Fine.
Where are young people involved in dance? There are lots of them. They're not here.
And I have to say, there are a lot of them. I would like to say that there were a lot of young people around me at the Kennedy Center when I was there yesterday afternoon. My 13-year-old daughter was one of them sitting next to me. But I mean, I saw a lot of kids in there. Perhaps that's a function of matinees at the Kennedy Center, and the question still holds. But
right, matinees are a lure for young people, thank God.
And old people.
Oh, yeah, and old people with sandwiches wrapped up in wax paper. And the cricket phone that they can't turn off. It's all right. It's all right. I'm used to that. There are many young people. I have a giant and very, I guess the word is successful, let's just say big, school in Brooklyn, which is open to just about anybody, meaning anybody. And we have thousands of students who come in very many more young people than old people, and it's a thriving thing. You know, there's also like stuff you don't want to see. There's like dancing on television that you think is not I'm talking about me, not that interesting, but it grabs people. There's also something like TikTok and Instagram and people who are communicating through dance specifically. And dance is a very, very big, it's not necessarily concert dance. It's not necessarily to classical music, whatever that might be, concert music, but it's, people always dance. It's not everybody. There's certain segments of the population and of our very crazy and complicated culture. Some people dance more than other people. You know, it used to be, you know, you'd see grandpa dancing with the granddaughter at the wedding, you know, but now the wedding is two women and like, the whole mixed family from all over the place. Unfortunately, a lot of them can't dance very well, but there's still a situation where that can happen. I think that social dance and vernacular dance are super interesting and important. And also, you know, tickets cost money. Bring somebody. If you're not going to go to the show, turn it in, let somebody else come. Yes?
Could you also speak about Parkinson's?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's quite an open question.
Yeah, I could. I think it's terrible. I'm against it. I don't want it. But because it exists and because it's prevalent, many, many people know somebody somehow who has this condition. So we, about 15, 18 years ago, started a dance for PD. People, it's music and dance and social contact for people with Parkinson's disease. And it's spread all over the world, as Parkinson's has over forever. But also I'm a little jealous because it's a super successful program. It's like, wait a minute, I have a dance company. What the hell are you doing? But we train people. We have these programs. There are DVDs available. And if you go to the website, of course, as everybody can find every website, it's a very deep and I was going to say deep and rich and even
Christmas
view. Yeah, exactly. Of Parkinson's disease. And it's not therapy. It's music and dancing and people participating in something. It's not scrutinized. It's not analyzed. It's just a kind of a fabulous thing. And that's all I know. Yeah.
And I have to say that that's where we're going next. And I have to say that when we were not looking for an ending to the book, but when, we were talking about the Parkinson's stuff, and then we were talking about your dances, to be danced after your death that are being planned now. It all wrote itself. There's always something there's always a little plan. I'm going over to this microphone
So
here.
I hope that I can make this make sense, but I'm so interested in like your dance vocabulary. And I would contrast what you do to say Swan Lake, the standard ballet, that's a vocabulary. And you have so many different influences that shape the vocabulary that you use. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you could just talk on a bit about that.
You're right.
It's why
what's going on there? This is crazy. You're correct.
It's like a noose above her head.
I'm sorry.
If she asked a bad question.
A, don't say that. B, right? People, no. B, you're right in that my dancers and I all are perfectly fluent in classical ballet. Sit down. Perfectly fluent in classical ballet, and that's one fabulous language that is important and classical for a reason, and I think very often not keeping up with the times. I don't mean choreographically, I mean sort of in every other way. So that's part of what we do. Also, I have a great interest in music and dancing from all over the place. So it's not just a shopping trip. It's not just like, what's that called? Pier 1. I'm not just at Pier 1 taking a basket from Oaxaca and then a carpet from Pakistan. That's not all I do, although I do that. I like a gift shop. I love all of these things, and I love how different people do different things. So I'm very careful not to just plagiarize or to, if we're talking about cultural appropriation, which we're not supposed to even talk about, I must proclaim that there's no other kind of culture. cultural appropriation is culture. Done. I'm sorry. Hooray. Oh, no, yay. Yeah. No, wait. Or I
crime,
hate you.
hate crime,
Hate
hate
crime.
crime.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's really like, well, duh. Look around. Hooray for everybody who is in contact with everybody else for centuries. So I look at it that way without it being a super intellectual pursuit. I notice those things. Like I said, I'm a very big fan of Indian classical, specifically Southern classical music and dance. I don't know about it. I have friends. I love it. I watch and listen. I'm not pretending to be any sort of expert, but I know a lot about it. And so that gets to be part of it. Yeah.
Did you see Pepperland this week? Right. So one thing I'd like to say
Quiz.
is that your first Indian dance was called
It was called Oranga Shahi.
and that featured you doing what I think you have communicated to me as being an impression of what Indian dance might look like
Yes.
on scant knowledge of it
Right.
to Indian music.
Yes.
And that, interestingly enough, is quoted in an unusual move for
Oh,
you,
yeah.
I believe, that the dancer at the back of the stage during Within You, Without
In
You
Pepperland.
is doing shapes from that original
Yes,
dance.
that's right.
Because, of course, Within You, Without You, you don't get much more cultural appropriation-y than Within You, Without
Well, the thing
You by
is,
George Harrison.
with that piece, the Beatles had nothing to do with it.
No, of course.
They were local Indian classical
Except
musicians.
George.
Right. Everybody else was running away.
And I guess George Martin and the beautiful string quartet.
But they were Hindustani musicians who lived in London, and they played this, and it was the first time I realized that it was the first time I heard Indian music, and I heard
Well,
it
it's
much
the first
later.
time almost everybody heard Indian
Right.
music.
It was before I'd heard Ravi Shankar, not just popular, but great. And then I go to India a lot, but it's not, I'm not doing a take on it. Well, I guess I am. I don't know. That's what
You're
I love.
contributing to it. There's someone slightly nearer a microphone than you are, which is going to go on.
Me.
Yes.
And then the person behind you can move towards it.
So I just wanted to say that my mom was a dancer and a teacher who always had live pianists in the classroom, and so I was grateful to see a lot of your dances. She took me and she just loved you, and I wanted to thank you for making her life just so full of joy with you. My question,
Is she around?
she passed away.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
deduced.
Yeah.
Well, hooray for her.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
for
No,
before.
I
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Okay,
for
sorry.
Being a dancer and loving music. Yeah, no.
I'm celebrating.
laughed at that,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, good. That's good.
Yeah, totally. My question is, I know the raw genius comes out of you and your music and your collaborations with your wonderful musicians. I wonder how much the dancers also collaborate in the choreography and your language. I'm just curious how much back and forth there is.
There's I think a big mistake, sorry, not you necessarily, but generally I get a question like an either or question, which is, do the dancers do exactly what you say or else, or do they just make it up as on a whim? The answer is mostly the former, but a little bit of the latter. So there are parts in many of my dances which are very strictly prescribed improvisations. The Hard Nut, the first act of The Hard Nut, which is my Nutcracker, and it's pretty darn good. It's set up, you have to be in a particular place with a person committing a certain choreographic act at the right time. But in between, it's like, whatever the hell you can fit in. If it's kind of fabulous and funny, do it. Pepperland also, which we just did here, has bits of do whatever the hell you want, but not really. It has to relate to the context of the show, like the great jazz musicians who are playing in the pit. So because it's always live music and live dancing, every act in a theater is an improvisation of a certain kind. It's never happened before. Of course, you know it. You know what's next, but how you get there and arriving at a particular time makes a big difference. So I trust my brilliant dancers and musicians to be able to pull that off
And also,
consistently.
Can I
Makes it
say?
exciting.
Thank you.
Can I say in the in defense of or whatever of the book that every question we've had so far is dealt fully on with in the prologue of the book.
which you can just read in the store, really.
It's only-
Yeah,
it's
you don't have
only
to
like
buy
20
it at all.
It's only 20 pages long, and the prologue really came out of many bits of our conversation that I couldn't fit anywhere else, and I tried to, get Mark to make into an argument. Sorry, go ahead.
So first, Mark Mars, you are a dance god. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
I
Bless
love people
you.
are new in college.
Okay, great.
And my question is, in Pepperland, what inspired you to use universal or pedestrian movements such as there was a lot of running, walking, clapping, snapping?
That's the question. I like that. Somebody asked me the other night a very similar question, why did you decide to use vernacular gesture or behavior? That was not you. Just a minute. That was you? I thought I answered your damn question then. I know what you mean.
If you phrase it.
Okay. No, because I brought up, Shiva Lingam is what I brought up. That's why, the story is, it's not just folk dance. It's not just anti-ballet, anti-classicism. It's communicative is how I look at it. So the way that a tune sticks in your head, a pattern sticks in your head, an action or what you perceive to be a relationship. You see, people talk, you can tell, and it varies culturally, but not a great deal. If you go to Italy and you're standing in line, it seems, if you want to get my attention, just whisper. If you want to, it's like you go to Italy and wait in line at a bank machine. It's like, leave me alone. Why are you're freaking me? And in the States, especially in Arkansas, people stand very far apart because there aren't as many people. Or it's like, you're cutting in line. It's like, nobody cuts in line where I live, but we do here. Or it's like, this means this here and this means this somewhere else. So it's not a universal language. There's no such thing as a universal language. If there is, it's face and hands. And that's it. It's like, that's where all of the miscommunications happen. It's like you're excited, which also means you're threatening or, it's so crazy and complicated. So to put any of that in, obviously look over there. And if you're a dog, you look at my finger. But I don't know. For me, it's a very, very basic level of communication that can then be refined into the gorgeous arabesque, which is just sticking your leg out backwards, let's face it. And also just comportment, how you behave in relation to other people, whatever manners or whatever. That changes a little bit by culture, but not by border. And I think that that's a very big part of communication, musical and choreographic.
Thank you.
And also, when we were talking about the book, there's various dances of yours that you point out are based on, for example, another kind of universal language, which would be sign language.
Yeah.
And so, in other words, some of the hand gestures that people are doing are precise American Sign Language.
Yeah.
But in the same dance, some of them aren't American Sign Language.
Right.
They're another thing you've made up. So it either makes a lot of sense to deaf people or no sense at all, depending on what bit of the dance it is. So it's not like you're looking for a universal accuracy in one particular mode, but that you go with all modes of face and hand signs.
Right.
I don't know why I'm answering the question.
No, that makes sense. No, I forgot about the ASL thing, which I'm not fluent, but it's absolutely part of it.
It's a way of communication. I'm afraid we're only going to be allowed 2 more questions, and one's by the microphone there, and then the very annoyed man in front of you gets to go after that.
Just following up a little bit on the improv versus set phrases question. When you're beginning a work, first rehearsal, and you walk into the studio and the dancers are there, what have you done beforehand? What preparation have you done to begin that process?
Wes just said showered. And yes, the other thing is I've either done an enormous amount of preparation or nearly zero. It's a piece of music I've listened to for 40 or 50 years, or I just heard it for the first time, and things in between. I've done preparation, thinking about it, studying the score, analyzing in some way. whatever. And I also think of who I'm working with. I always start with everybody, whether it's going to be a solo or a big group dance. I start it with everyone. And it's not that I'm improvising exactly just like go like this, but I have ideas about rhythmic structure, or, I forbid diagonals in this, or women only in this dance, or the music's slow, we have to dance fast. I do stupid ideas like that. And then, of course, reject all of them while I'm working on it. So I work very fast. My dancers learn so quickly. I do it. It's like, how did that go? And they read it back to me. And then I change it or get rid of it or repeat it forever. And from doing that over a period of time, I learn where the dance needs to go in relation to its music. I never have a dance in my head and just like squeeze it out like a blackhead.
I'm sorry? And also sometimes I know that you go in and you have a particular just set of movements that you associate with the dance. You've already thought the moment you've heard the music, you've gone, oh, this is going to be a lot of that.
Yes,
or whatever it is. And so it could be many things when you go in.
But it's never, or very rarely, let's say that, just a direct translation from rhythm or tune or words into action. People think that because my work seems obvious or evident, or I like to think of it as inevitable, but maybe I'm just dreaming. So it's like, here's what I thought of. Watch that. And I've had people say, I can't hear that piece of music without seeing your dance. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. Because I will never listen to a dance, to a piece of music recreationally after I've choreographed it. It's just poisoned for me. It's like pissing in the punch bowl.
And also, people might say that film is the most collaborative art, but what could be more collaborative than having an idea and then having to express it through the entire bodies of another set of human beings who are having to do that work for you? You're going to play to their strengths, aren't you?
They will win.
They will win.
They win by the way they're dancing, which is how I want it to be.
Last question.
I asked you a similar question to this.
You're banned. Somebody else. No.
A few years ago at Jacob's Pillow, and you yelled at me. And so I'm going to try it again. After I saw Pepperland yesterday afternoon, and most of your dances, I want to see them again because you can't get it all in one viewing, and I want to know how you feel now about, since this was before L'Allegro was filmed in Spain, in Barcelona, and and I adore that video, and I like the Mozart dances that were filmed by PBS and all that. How do you feel about Pepperland or any of your dances being supervised by you and excellent videos of them?
Yes.
What do I think about it?
What a question.
To put it on like TV or the big screen or something like that?
The big screen.
I'm all for it.
Yay.
Do you have like $5 million a minute?
Wait a minute.
I would love that. The thing is that we record everything.
Yeah.
You just don't get to see it.
Well,
because it's shitty.
I go to the library at Jacob's.
Yeah, but it's like, it's a nightmare. It's not it's not the dance.
Yeah.
And of course, all recorded dancing, all recorded everything is some kind of an aide-memoire. So it's like, and not everybody lives in a fabulous metropolitan area with a gorgeous theater where we're performing. Of course. And I watch my damn phone. I watch this. This is, Allegro Brillante from 1964 with these great dancers at City Ballet. Watch this. Like, that's not it. So I'll do anything for money. And, if I just got one big blockbuster movie to choreograph 10 seconds of some jerk in the background at the ball at the Palace, I would do that. But also I would present anything as a film, as some other medium. It's just that it's usually done so terribly, and there's no real money for that kind of thing. PBS and stuff like that. They're just you've got their phone. Their phones actually ring with a bell. That's how old-fashioned that is. I'm all for it.
When Richard Attenborough filmed Chorus Line, he forgot to film the feet.
Oops.
Well, and
They're implied.
And also, for somebody who wishes you could do more, that more of those opportunities happen, as anybody would. In fact, you were relatively lucky because of your genius amongst modern choreographers, because PBS did feature you in a couple
That's
of
right.
incredibly,
They're very, very good. It's true.
Incredible TV things that made your dance look great.
Yeah.
Which
But also, to me, the answer, I briefly. I used to teach at Juilliard with some frequency, and I was one day teaching a class. I insisted on, instead of 2 1.5-hour classes, 1 3-hour class. That was a mistake. And so the dancers were talking between the bar and the center, and I said this. I had mentioned in class something about the Water Nymph Ballet from Goldwyn Follies that was choreographed by George Balanchine, and Vera Zorina was the beautiful water nymph, and that's what became the hippopotamus dance of the hours in Fantasia, but it was based on Balanchine's work. And there's an incredible Romeo and Juliet number where the one family is tap dancers and the other ballet dancers. Balanchine did this. It's a great movie. I said, so you've seen this ballet? He said, oh yeah, we watched that in dance history. I said, oh, that's great. You have dance history here at Juilliard? That's incredible. And I said, well, you know that part in the movie where the Katz brothers come in and they have all those cats and there's that. He said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I said, but you watched that dance. He said, oh yeah, we just, we had to watch like 3 minutes of it on YouTube. And it's like, oh, that's dance history at Juilliard. Here's the Balanchine semester. It's like, no. So I'd rather avoid that entirely. Anyway, you can't. The end.
And ladies and gentlemen, it is the end. So I believe there to be some. You're going to do a little thingy about stuff. Great. So I'm done.
Could you be more specific? Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes.